Caitlin Clark is a name that's been buzzing in every corner of the basketball community. Her rise to prominence wasn't a sudden explosion, but more like a steady drumbeat that got louder until it couldn't be ignored anymore. And now, it's not just the fans or analysts who have something to say about her game. It's the free agents, those athletes who've seen and done it all, who are throwing in their 2 cents. This isn't just the typical media chatter. It's players who've been in the trenches, experienced the grind, and now they're talking candidly about what Caitlin Clark means to them and to the future of basketball. But before we proceed further, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. Clark's ability to leave an impression isn't just about her stats, although, let's be real, those numbers are crazy. She's not just racking up points or assists. She's changing perceptions, challenging expectations, and doing it all with a confidence that feels both refreshing and fierce. It's no wonder that when free agents, seasoned pros with their own stories and perspectives, were asked about Clark, their reactions varied from admiration to sheer amusement. One of these free agents, a veteran shooter, talked about Clark like she was the friend who always shows up late to the party, but immediately becomes the center of attention. You see her on the court, and it's like, all right, here comes the show, he said, waving his arms around as if conducting an imaginary orchestra. The thing is, Caitlin's not trying to put on a show in the traditional sense. It's not about flash without substance. Instead, it's the way she plays, almost instinctively, that makes everything she does feel like something you can't look away from. Another player, a defensive specialist known for his no-nonsense approach, gave his thoughts in a style that was as blunt as his reputation. He didn't waste time on flowery language, just straight-up honesty. "She's annoying," he said, laughing. "You think you've got her figured out, and then she just flips the script." There's a certain respect hidden behind his words, a grudging acknowledgement that Clark's game is the kind that keeps defenders up at night. He went on to describe her as someone who plays with a chip on her shoulder, like she's always got something to prove, and honestly, who doesn't relate to that on some level? What's interesting is that it's not just her scoring ability that these players are impressed by. Many of them mentioned her court vision in passing. One free agent guard, known for his quickness and flair, didn't hold back his admiration. "She passes like she's got eyes in the back of her head," he said, shaking his head in disbelief. He compared watching her play to seeing a magician at work. There's this sense of anticipation every time she touches the ball, because you know something unexpected might happen. And for players who've been around the block, that's not something you see every day. Then there's the free agent forward who prides himself on his versatility. He seemed genuinely perplexed at how someone Clark's size could command so much attention on the court. "She's not the tallest or the strongest, but she just owns the moment," he said, scratching his head. "It's like she knows exactly who she is out there, and everyone else just has to deal with it." This forward went on to joke about how Clark's shooting range might soon force coaches to draw up new defensive schemes altogether. "Pretty soon, we're going to be seeing 4-point lines," he said with a chuckle, a hint of resignation in his voice. A couple of the players, those who have been around long enough to see multiple generations of stars rise and fall, talked about Clark's swagger. It's not the kind of arrogance that turns people off. It's more of a quiet belief in her abilities. One player, a seasoned free agent, known for being a bit of a trash talker, couldn't help but laugh when asked about Clark. "Man, she talks her talk," he said, shaking his head. "But it's never just talk. She backs it up every single time." It's easy to see why these athletes, who've been part of the game for so long, respect that. They know how difficult it is to talk the talk and actually walk the walk. And then, of course, there's the mental aspect of Clark's game, something that several of these free agents brought up unprompted. One veteran point guard, who's seen his share of young talents come and go, pointed out how Clark seems to have this unshakable focus. "She's like a chess player out there," he said, gesturing as if moving invisible pieces on a board. "Every move she makes, it's like she's 5 steps ahead." He paused for a second before adding with a grin, "But then she'll hit some ridiculous shot, and you realize maybe she's just making it up as she goes. It's a balance that's hard to achieve, and even harder to maintain. But Clark does it with an ease that leaves even the most experienced pros shaking their heads in amazement." Some of these free agents seemed almost envious, not of Clark's success, but of her timing. A few of them mused about how different the landscape is now, how social media and evolving perspectives on women's sports have opened up opportunities that weren't there before. One free agent forward, whose prime years were marked by the grind of staying relevant, spoke with a kind of wistful admiration. "Man, if this was the era I played in, who knows?" He said, half laughing, half serious. "It's just a different game now, and she's the face of that change." And that's the thing about Clark's rise. It's not just about her game, as groundbreaking as it is. It's about what she represents, and that's where the reactions from these free agents become even more interesting. They see her not just as a player, but as a catalyst for something bigger. There's a recognition that Caitlin Clark isn't just scoring points or setting records. She's creating a new blueprint, challenging conventions, and making people rethink what's possible. But let's not get too philosophical here. At the end of the day, these are athletes talking about another athlete, and sometimes the reactions are as straightforward as you'd expect. One free agent center, a mountain of a man with hands like dinner plates, laughed when asked about guarding Clark. "No way," he said, shaking his head. "I'm not trying to get embarrassed." He described her step-back three like it was a trick shot that shouldn't be allowed but grudgingly admitted. But hey, if you can do it, why not? There's an underlying current in these conversations, a sense that Caitlin Clark is doing something that isn't supposed to be done. It's not just that she's good. Plenty of players are good. It's that she's redefining what being good means. One veteran free agent, who prides himself on his basketball IQ, put it this way: she's not just playing the game, she's bending it to her will. There's a quiet appreciation in his tone, like he knows how rare it is to see someone do that. As these free agents spoke, there was almost an unspoken agreement that Clark's journey is still just getting started. One former All-Star, now in the twilight of his career, summed it up nicely. "The thing about Caitlin," he said, leaning back with a thoughtful look, "is that she's still figuring it out. She's already this good, and she hasn't even reached her peak." He paused for a second before adding with a grin, "And that's kind of terrifying." In these conversations, there's a mix of respect, curiosity, and a little bit of awe. But there's also humor, a lighthearted acknowledgement that Caitlin Clark is the kind of player who keeps everyone on their toes. One free agent, a seasoned guard with a reputation for being a prankster, couldn't help but laugh as he recalled a moment from a game where Clark did something completely unexpected. "She threw this no-look pass, and I swear the defender was looking around like, 'Did anyone else see that?' he said, chuckling at the memory." It's these little anecdotes that paint a picture of how Clark isn't just making a name for herself. She's making an impact. Even though these free agents have seen their share of talents and legends, there's a sense that Caitlin Clark represents something fresh. It's like watching a new chapter unfold in a story they've been part of for so long. And that's what makes their perspectives so compelling. They're not just observers. They're participants in a game that's changing before their eyes. And Caitlin Clark, whether she realizes it or not, is one of the driving forces behind that change. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more engaging content. We thrive on your feedback, so be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Until next time, keep discovering and stay tuned.